love again. That's the lie people tell you after losing someone. You'll find someone else. She's not the only woman in the world. You'll meet somebody better, and maybe they're right. Maybe you will meet someone beautiful. Someone kind, someone who laughs at your jokes, someone who wants the same things you want, someone who loves you without making you question it. But nobody warns you about the other possibility. That sometimes you don't lose the person you loved the most, you lose the person who knew you the best. And years later, when someone new is sitting across from you, you realize you're not comparing her to your first love. You're comparing her to the woman you never replaced. Her name was Anna, and she wasn't your first love. She wasn't even the first woman who broke your heart. But she became the one your heart quietly kept a place for, long after you told everyone you had moved on. You met Anna on an ordinary Tuesday. There was nothing cinematic about it. No rain, no music, no dramatic collision in a crowded street. You were standing in line at a small coffee shop, staring at your phone while pretending you weren't checking the time every 30 seconds. She was behind you. You heard her say, "You're going to miss your train." You looked over your shoulder. "What?" She pointed toward the clock. "You're checking it like it personally offended you." You laughed. It was the first thing you ever liked about her. She made you laugh before she even knew your name. You said, "I'm not catching a train." "Oh," she smiled. "Then you're just impatient." Apparently, she ordered coffee, you ordered yours, and somehow you ended up talking for another 15 minutes about the terrible weather, about the coffee, about the city, about nothing important. Then she left. You thought that was it. It wasn't. The next morning she was there again, same table, same coffee, same smile. She looked at you, you again. You smiled. "I was going to say that." "No, you weren't. You're very confident. I've met men before." You laughed, and that was how it began, not with fireworks, with coffee. Over the next few months, Anna became part of your routine. Morning coffee, late-night messages, weekend walks, run photographs. She would send you pictures of things that reminded her of you. A ridiculous-looking dog, a badly parked car, a sign with your name on it. You started doing the same. Your phone became full of little pieces of her. And you didn't notice when she stopped being someone you were dating. Erin became someone you were building your life around. She knew when you were pretending to be okay. That was one of the first things that made her different. You had always been good at saying, "I'm fine." Anna never believed you. One night you came home after a terrible day. She looked at you. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Try again. I'm tired." "That's not what I asked." You dropped your keys on the table. "I don't want to talk about it." She nodded. "Okay." You expected her to leave you alone. Instead, she sat beside you, no questions, no advice, no pressure, just her shoulder against yours. 20 minutes later, you started talking. She listened. When you finished, she said, "You don't always have to be strong around me." You looked at her. "I know." She smiled. "I don't think you do." That sentence stayed with you. Because she was right. You had spent years believing love meant protecting someone from your problems. Anna taught you that sometimes love meant allowing someone to stand beside you while you carried them. You became softer around her, not weaker. Softer. You started talking about things you'd never told anyone, your fears, your family, your failures, the things you regretted, the future you secretly wanted. She listened to all of it, and eventually you realized something frightening. She knew you, not the version of you everyone else knew you. Then came the first major fight. It was about something stupid. You had forgotten an important dinner. Anna had been waiting. You arrived late. She was angry. You became defensive. She became quiet. You said, "Why are you making this such a big deal?" She looked at you. "Because it wasn't about dinner." "Then what was it about?" "I wanted to know if I mattered." You immediately regretted your words. "Of course you matter. Then show me." You stared at her. She wasn't asking for flowers. She wasn't asking for an expensive gift. She wanted consistency. She wanted to know that loving her wasn't something you did only when it was convenient. You apologized. She accepted. And that night you learned something important. Relationships weren't built during perfect days. They were built during uncomfortable conversations. Years passed. You became best friends. each other's routines. You had your places, your songs, your jokes, your arguments, your plans. One summer evening, you were sitting on the roof of your apartment. Anna was lying beside you. She asked, "Do you ever think about where we'll be in 10 years? You laughed. "Probably still arguing." "About what?" "Everything." She smiled. "Good." You turned toward her. "Why good?" "Because if we're still arguing, we're probably still together." You kissed her forehead, and for the first time, you allowed yourself to imagine forever. Then life changed. Your job offered you an opportunity in another city. It was a major promotion, more money, more responsibility, a future you had worked toward for years. But Anna couldn't move. Her mother was sick. She needed to stay close. You told each other it would be temporary, 6 months, maybe a year. You could make it work. You promised. At first you did phone calls every night, weekend flights, long messages, photographs. You counted down the days until you saw each other. But distance has a strange way of revealing things. You began missing ordinary moments. You couldn't sit beside her after a difficult day. She couldn't reach for your hand. You started arguing about phone calls. She said you weren't available enough. You said you were exhausted. She said she felt alone. You said you were doing everything you could. Both of you were right, and somehow that made it worse. One night, Anna called you. You answered. "Hey," she didn't say anything. "Anna, I'm tired." You sat down. "What's wrong?" "I don't know how much longer I can do this." Your stomach tightened. "We said we'd get through it." "I know, we will." Silence. Then she asked, "Do you still want this?" You didn't understand. "Of course I do." "Then why does it feel like I'm the only one fighting?" You closed your eyes. You wanted to say everything, that you loved her, that you were terrified of losing her, that you hated the distance, that you didn't know how to fix it. Instead, you said, "I don't know what you want me to do." There was silence. Then she whispered, "That's the problem." The call ended. Hornbroker, 3 days later, she broke up with you. There was no betrayal, no cheating, no dramatic secret. Just two people who loved each other and couldn't find a way to make the life they wanted fit the circumstances they had. She cried, you cried. She held your hand. You didn't want to let go, but eventually you did. Her last words were, "I hope you don't forget me," you said. I couldn't. At the time, you thought you were making a promise. You didn't realize you were predicting the future. The first year without Anna was strange. You thought you would eventually stop thinking about her. You didn't. But you learned how to function. You worked, you traveled, you went out, you dated, you laughed, you told people you were over it, and eventually you believed yourself. Until you met someone else. Her name was Sophie. Sophie was wonderful. She was intelligent, beautiful, warm. She liked your humor. She admired your ambition. She wanted a serious relationship. Everything seemed right, you told yourself. This is it, and maybe it could have been, but there was one problem. Sophie didn't know you the way Anna did, not because Sophie wasn't capable, because you didn't let her. You had changed. The parts of yourself that Anna had once seen, you kept protected. You were careful, controlled. You didn't tell Sophie about your fears. You didn't tell her when you were overwhelmed. You didn't let her see up to you completely. You loved her. But you kept a small door locked, and you didn't even realize it. One evening, Sophie asked, "Do you love me?" You looked at her. Yes. She waited. Then why do I feel like the part of you I can't reach? The question froze you because you had heard it before. Different woman, different city, same truth. You thought you had learned from your past. But maybe you had only learned how to hide it better. Oh. Sophie eventually left, not because she didn't love you, because she could feel that your heart was somewhere you wouldn't let her enter. Before she left, she said something you never forgot. "I don't think you're still in love with her." You looked at her. "Who?" She smiled sadly. "The woman you never talk about." You didn't answer. She continued, "I think you're in love with the version of yourself that existed when you were with her." Then she walked away. You sat alone, and for the first time in years you thought about Anna. Honvor, you found the old photograph that night. It was from a summer afternoon. Anna was laughing. You were looking at her instead of the camera. You didn't remember the photograph being taken. But But you remembered the feeling. Safety, that was what she had given you. Not excitement, not obsession. Safety, the ability to be completely yourself without wondering whether you were too much or not enough. You stared at the photograph and realized something painful. You had spent years trying to replace Anna, when what you actually missed was the person you had been with her. You dated again, then again. Every woman was different. Some were more adventurous, some were more beautiful, some were more ambitious. Some understood you intellectually, some shared your interests, some wanted the same future, and every time you wondered why something was missing. You hated yourself for thinking it because it wasn't fair. You couldn't compare real women to a memory, and yet you did. Not consciously, but somewhere inside. Anna had become the measuring stick, not because she was perfect. She wasn't. You remembered her flaws, her stubbornness, her tendency to overthink, her habit of stealing your food, the way she could turn a 10-minute disagreement into a 40-minute discussion. She wasn't perfect, but she was real. And real people leave deeper marks than perfect memories. 7 years after you met her, you saw her again. You were at an airport. You had a coffee in your hand. Someone walked past. You recognized the laugh first. You turned Anna. She looked older. Of course she did, so did you. Her hair was different. Her face had changed slightly, but her eyes were the same. She saw you, stopped and smiled. You're still impatient. You laughed. You're still observant. For a few seconds, neither of you knew what to say. Then she hugged you, and something inside your chest moved, not violently, quietly, like a door opening in a room you had forgotten existed. Holdura and Zura, they sat together for coffee. She told you about her life. Her mother had recovered. She had changed careers. She had traveled. She had built a life. You listened, then she asked, "What about you?" You smiled. "I'm okay." She raised an eyebrow. "Try again." You laughed. "I've been better." She smiled. "That's more honest." For a moment you were 28 again, two people sitting over coffee. Nothing complicated, nothing forced. Just familiar. Then she asked the question you had feared. "Did you ever marry?" You shook your head. "No." She looked surprised. "Why?" You looked down. "Never found the right person." She was quiet, then said, "That's not an answer." You looked at her. She knew, she always knew. You sighed. "I kept comparing everyone to you." She didn't smile, she didn't look flattered. Instead, she looked sad. "Don't do that." "What?" "Don't turn me into someone I wasn't." You frowned. "What do you mean?" "You remember the best parts." She looked out the window. "You remember the way I loved you. You remember how safe you felt. But you forget the nights we couldn't understand each other. You forget how much we hurt. You forget that we couldn't make it work." You didn't say anything. She continued, "Maybe you couldn't replace me because you weren't supposed to." You looked at her. "Then what was I supposed to do?" She smiled softly. "Love someone new without asking her to be me." That sentence broke something open, because she was right. You had spent years looking for another Anna, but there would never be another Anna, not because she was the only woman capable of loving you, because every person is irreplaceable in their own way. You weren't supposed to find her again. You were supposed to take what she taught you and carry it forward. Before leaving, Anna gave you something. The old coffee shop photograph. You didn't know she still had it. You looked at it. "You kept this." She nodded. "For a long time." You smiled. "Why?" She shrugged. "Because it was a good time." Then she stood. You knew the moment was ending. You wanted to ask her to stay, but you didn't. Not because you were afraid, because you finally understood. Sometimes loving someone means accepting that the life you imagined together is no longer yours. You hugged her. She whispered, "I'm glad you found me." You closed your eyes. "I'm glad I did too." Then she walked away, and this time, you didn't watch the door hoping she'd turn around. You went home that night, opened the drawer where you kept the old photograph, looked at it one final time, then placed it somewhere new. Not hidden, not displayed, just somewhere safe. You realized you didn't need to forget her. You needed to stop waiting for the past to become the future. Anna had been one of the greatest chapters of your life, but she wasn't the entire book. Maybe that's what you need to hear tonight. If there is someone you never replaced, don't punish yourself for it. Some people leave fingerprints on your soul. You don't erase them, you learn from them. Maybe she taught you how to communicate. Maybe she taught you how to be vulnerable. Maybe she showed you what it felt like to be truly known. Maybe she was the first person who made you understand what home felt like. But that doesn't mean she was the only person who could ever make you happy. It means she mattered, and some people are allowed to matter without staying forever. You may have a woman like Anna in your past. Maybe she was your college girlfriend, your first serious relationship, the woman you almost married, the woman you lost because of distance, timing, fear, pride. Life, maybe you still think about her when a certain song plays. Maybe you still know her birthday. Maybe you still remember her favorite coffee. Maybe you occasionally wonder what her life looks like now. That's okay. You don't have to hate the past to move forward. You don't have to erase someone to love someone else. You simply have to stop confusing memory with destiny. And if you're listening to this at night, maybe you're wondering, what if she was the one? Maybe she was. Maybe she was the one who changed you. Maybe she was the one who showed you something about yourself nobody else could. But being the one doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes someone is the one who teaches you, the one who wakes you up, the one who breaks your defenses, the one who makes you understand what you want, and then they leave, not because the love was meaningless, because life moves. If this story feels like it was written about someone you still think about, subscribe to this channel. Stay here. Because there are stories for the nights when you can't explain why you still remember someone. Stories for the people you never got to say goodbye to properly. Stories for the relationships that ended without anyone being the villain. And stories for the men who keep carrying old love quietly because nobody ever taught them what to do with it. 'Cause Grizz now, and when another night comes, when a memory finds you, come back. You don't have to pretend here. Unbearing was years later you met someone new. Her name was Lily. She wasn't like Anna, and that was the point. She had her own laugh, her own strange habits, her own dreams. She argued differently. She loved differently. She saw the world differently, and at first that scared you. You kept waiting for the feeling to be identical. It never was. Then one night Lily asked, "What are you thinking?" You smiled. "That you're not Anna." She laughed. "Should I be offended?" "No." You reached for her hand. "I'm realizing I don't want you to be." She looked at you. You continued, "I spent a long time thinking love meant feeling the same feeling again. And now," you smiled, "now I think love means discovering a feeling that belongs to two completely different people." She squeezed your hand, and for the first time, you weren't comparing, you were present. That night, after Lily fell asleep, you looked out the window. You thought about Anna, not with longing, with gratitude. You finally understood why you couldn't replace her, because she wasn't a position, she wasn't a role, she wasn't a vacancy. She was a person, a specific person who existed during a specific chapter of your life, and no one was supposed to replace her the same way Lily didn't need to replace anyone. She only needed to be herself. So, if you're still carrying someone from your past, don't force yourself to forget. Instead, ask what that person left you. Maybe courage, maybe wisdom, maybe scars, maybe tenderness. Maybe a better understanding of what love requires. Take those things. Leave the rest. You can remember her without waiting for her. You can miss her without going back. You can be grateful without reopening the door. And eventually, you may love someone new without feeling like you're betraying the person you once loved. Because moving forward isn't betrayal, it's life. She wasn't your first love. Maybe she wasn't even your longest relationship. But she was the woman you knew that being loved isn't enough. You have to let yourself be known. You have to communicate. You have to stay when things become difficult. You have to fight for what matters. And sometimes you have to know when the fight is over. You couldn't replace her. You weren't supposed to, because the goal was never to find another Anna. The goal was to become the man who could finally appreciate what Anna had taught him, and carry that wisdom into the love that came after. So tonight, if her memory returns, don't push it away, let it come. See her smile. Remember the coffee shop. Remember the stupid arguments. Remember the rooftop. Remember the goodbye. And then breathe because that life happened. It mattered, it shaped you. But it is not where you live anymore. You live here. Tonight, in this room, in this moment, with a future that hasn't been written yet. Maybe someone is waiting for you who doesn't need to replace her. Maybe someone will love a completely different version of you, a version that knows how to stay. A version that knows how to speak, a version that isn't afraid of being seen. And maybe, one day, you'll realize that you didn't need to replace the woman who changed your life. You only needed to stop asking every new person to carry her shadow. She was never replaceable, neither is anyone else. That's what makes love real, and maybe that's what finally makes letting go possible. Good night.